Hi, and thanks for joining us today. I'm Jeff Steck from Tylerica Marketing Systems in Austin, Texas, and I'm joined today by Ken Tucker from Changescape Web and also Paul Barthel from Changescape Web in St. Charles, Missouri. And Ian Cantle, one of our regular hosts, isn't able to be with us today, but we do have a couple of recorded clips from him that we will intersperse in. Ian is from Outsource Marketing in Bradford, Ontario. Today's topic is unlocking the power of programmatic advertising for your small business. So, we're going to dive into the dynamic world of programmatic advertising, which is potentially a game changer for small businesses that are looking to make a big splash in the digital marketplace. Whether you're just starting out or you're looking to refine your online advertising strategies, we want to demystify programmatic advertising, explore its benefits, and help you understand the ecosystem. We'll also talk about leveraging effective targeting strategies, measuring success, and navigating the challenges that come with it. So let's start with our first question. This one will go to Ian. Let's start by demystifying programmatic advertising for our audience. So Ian's recording is about explaining what programmatic. I'm going to have a hard time with that one today. Programmatic advertising is and how it works.
So, programmatic advertising is radically different than traditional ad buying in that it involves negotiating directly with publishers for ad space. It also differs from regular digital advertising that exists on many of the platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or TikTok, although a lot of platforms now have mild versions of programmatic advertising. But to understand really what programmatic advertising is, you need an analogy, and I think an analogy like this one works really well. Think of programmatic advertising like having a really smart robot sell lemonade from your lemonade stand. You want to sell as much lemonade as possible. That's your goal, but you don't have the time to figure out who actually wants the lemonade and when do they want it. So you ask the robot for help. Now, the robot watches people as they walk by, learning who likes lemonade and when they are most likely to buy it. And maybe it even notices that certain people, like joggers in the morning, are really thirsty, or parents at the park are looking for drinks for their kids in the afternoon. Then, instead of shouting to everyone, hoping the right people hear you, like common advertising platform methodologies, the robot quickly puts up little digital signs, like online ads, that only those thirsty joggers and park-going parents will see. It's super fast and it keeps changing the signs based on who's walking by at that very moment. In real life, programmatic advertising is like that robot. It's a way of using computers and data to automatically decide where and when to show your ads online. These computers analyze lots of information about people browsing the internet. What are they most interested in? What are they searching for? Or what websites do they visit? And then they place your ads where the people are most likely to be interested in your product will see them. This happens in a split second every time someone loads a web page or an app. So that's a really good analogy, I think, just in layman's terms of how programmatic advertising works. It automates the process of buying, placing, and optimizing your digital ads. It uses software and algorithms to purchase the ad inventory across numerous ad platforms and websites. Advertisers bid on ad impressions in real time through ad exchange and ad networks. The data is used to target specific audiences and optimize your ad delivery. Programmatic advertising really streamlines the ad buying process and improves the efficiency of it. It reduces manual effort, it reduces human errors, and programmatic advertising provides better targeting capabilities and audience insights. And it allows you really granular control over your ad spend and your budget allocation. And it also helps enable real-time optimization and campaign adjustments. And it uses machine learning and artificial intelligence for better ad performance. So there's lots of really great potential and prospective opportunity for you as a small business to use programmatic advertising. And this is a great topic.
Thanks, Ian. So for me, if I unpack that a little bit, I think there's a lot in there, and a couple of the key points are that the degree of targeting you can do is much, much more sophisticated than, say, a simple Google or Facebook ad. And also the number of places your ads can go are much, much broader. So, Paul, Ken, anything you want to add on that question?
Yeah, I guess I still think, it still doesn't replace the intentionality that you can do with Google pay-per-click search ads. But it's a great complement, and and can be a very cost-effective alternative or supplement, either one.
Yeah, I think you look at the funnel, the typical buyer's journey funnel, and you go from brand awareness at the very top. I think programmatic can be great in brand awareness, and then based on some of the behaviors, maybe a little more mid funnel. But you're right, something like Google search, that's very intent driven.
Or at least it should be.
At least it should be. Yeah. And so, again, these things work in concert. We talk about building marketing systems. It's not just any one thing, but it's about all the arrows in the quiver and how they work together.
Yeah.
Paul, anything you want to add?
No, not really, because you have a question for me that's going to kind of address some of
Yeah,
that.
I was going to say, I know we're going to get into it a little deeper later. So, we ready to go on to question 2, Ken?
Yeah.
That one's for you then. So, what are the key benefits of programmatic, or I got it right that time, advertising for small businesses?
Yeah. Well, as both you and Ian talked about, it can be a cost-effective solution because you're not broadcasting to the world and exposing, your ads to just anybody who could come by and click on it, whether they're really realize the intention of what you're trying to get them to do or what they want to do or not. So that's good. There's obviously a level of efficiency here once you build the campaigns. From a high level perspective, the actual ad buying and all of that is automated and is taken care of for you. As a result, I think there's implied scalability there that's a potential. From a targeting perspective, there are lots of targeting criteria that can be used, and I think we're going to get into that a little bit later. What's nice though about that is, Jeff, as you said, at the top of the funnel, when you're trying to build that awareness, that targeting comes into play to increase visibility and brand awareness, maybe nudge people to the point where they start to develop that curiosity and want to learn more about the business and start moving down the buyer's journey. And I think that's really, one of the powerful things. Obviously, this is all driven by data and a lot of data crunching to make this all happen. It's really common. A lot of small businesses, you can have the best SEO program on the planet for that business. You can be running really effective Google search ads at the bottom of the funnel that are intention oriented, where you're really getting the max value out of that ad spend. At the end of the day, that still may not generate enough traffic to build enough leads that's going to satisfy that business's appetite, desire, or need to grow. And so you need to have a traffic source that is putting people and getting people to your website to start that buyer's journey if they're not ready to, even if they're not ready to make that buying decision yet. And I think programmatic can be a really great solution for that. So it's really common. I mean, you can't remarket to people if they never come to your website. If you're remarketing, if you're using, for example, Google's remarketing strategy, right? You can with Facebook if they come to your website as well. But if they never come to your website, you can't remarket to them. So you've got to get that initial traffic there. And I think that's really kind of an, that's the thing that I think most people have a really hard time understanding. Sometimes even if it's not intentional traffic that's ready to buy, it's still valuable traffic. And you've got this whole process of, we talk about this a lot. I know, Paul, you and I, the assisted conversions where, look, you got to get that one thing to get people to raise their hand. It could be social media. It could be, running programmatic ads, which typically are display ads, across the web. But you got to get them onto your website first before you can really start to get them hooked and get them to want to learn more about your business and take action. So, yeah, I mean, I think those are kind of the big highlights that I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something Ken just mentioned that's important, with the demise of cookies, assisted conversions have become harder to track. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is there's this mindset, well, I paid for an ad. Why aren't people clicking and converting? It's, well, because they know it's an ad and they've probably never, heard of your business before. Most people do not convert directly from an ad. They'll click on an ad and then they'll go to your landing page or your website. Maybe they'll go to your Facebook page. They'll do some research and then they'll convert. So even though they didn't convert directly from that ad, it was that ad that first introduced you and your business to that potential consumer. And then somewhere down the line, they converted. And we talk about touch points a lot. And advertising is just one more touch point.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, you make a good point, Paul. You have to kind of lay everything out and plan that buyer's journey and how you tap into it at various levels. And expecting an ad to make the sale is, I think, unrealistic in most cases expectation. The job of the ad is to catch somebody's interest and get them interested enough to click on the ad and go to the website. That's it. Once they get to the website, now you start doing the heavy lifting of educating, informing, convincing, and they're still probably not ready to buy. They might be if it's e-commerce, but maybe they're just learning about you, and there's a couple more steps to take. So again, a lot of the, not all, but a lot of the programmatic techniques can be very top of funnel, just intended to get interest and drive traffic. And I think that's one of the places it can shine because it is so cost effective. That volume is inexpensive, but it's all about big volume, to drive traffic.
Yeah. And obviously, every business is different. So if you're a restaurant, somebody's hungry and you're running an ad, they're liable to take action very quickly. Water restoration, if you've got water coming into your house or flooding your basement, you're going to take action pretty quickly. But if you're buying a car, if you're buying digital marketing services, you're usually going to have a slower, longer sales cycle, based on, if what you're selling is bigger ticket, for example, a large remodeling project, for example, if to expect somebody to click on an ad and convert, is probably not very realistic, but it is critical to the buyer's journey.
Yeah, and
Go ahead, Paul.
Going back to what you said, Jeff, about the purpose of the ad. That's why in Google's world, by default, they consider an ad click a conversion. Someone did a search for this product or service. We showed them your ad. They clicked on your ad. In Google's world, that's a conversion, but it's not a sale.
Right.
So conversion and sale are two different things.
Yep.
You have to define what a conversion is for you. If you're running an ad to get people to sign up for your newsletter and someone signs up for your newsletter, that's a conversion, but you didn't sell them anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Ken used a couple of examples that can highlight some of the differences in hours of programmatic ads, even programmatic. So restaurants, restaurants may be one where top of funnel is all you need, right? If you're doing, I know you're going to talk about different targeting strategies in a minute, but if you're trying to catch people that are driving by your restaurant around dinner time, for instance, that may be all you need. They passenger in the car has the ad pop up on their phone when they're just, on their phone looking at stuff, enjoying the ride. Then all of a sudden, hey, let's go there.
Yeah.
But the emergency plumber, a brand awareness, very high top of funnel, just showing people that ad all the time, maybe it doesn't make as much sense. That's maybe where the Google search intent is more appropriate. So so before we go to targeting, let's go to Paul and let's explore the programmatic ecosystem. So Paul, can you explain the different components involved in programmatic advertising?
Yeah, I'll try not to go too deep in the weeds here. Because this is where I may diverge a little bit. SEM Rush, I think it was late last year. They actually did a really good article on programmatic advertising. And so let's start with, you have your ad exchanges where ad inventory, and I think you can kind of explain that, where it's bought and sold in real time. And Google search does use programmatic advertising. You may not realize it, but that kind of is what Google search is, not display ads. And I'll explain the difference in a little bit, but you have the supply side platforms where this is publishers are where you're placing your ads on someone's website or in their app. So let's say you go to Google search and you say, I want to place an advertisement on this. So let's say it's home improvement, and you say, okay, I want to place ads on this old house. Well, this old house is a supply side platform. They're saying, okay, we have this much space on our website, wherever it is, to place ads. And they sell that ad space to whoever it is, Google or anyone else. And then you pay to place your ad there. And that gets ad networks as the aggregators like Google or YouTube or Facebook. Okay, that they go to these publishers and they say, okay, we want to buy ad space from you, and then we're going to turn around and we're going to sell that to our customers. That's what Google does. Okay, that's what Facebook does. And then this is where I think it's easier for people to understand, if you think about it in the context of Google, is that Google is an ad network. They are an ad server. They have a verification process. They are a data provider. They provide data about your ads, your click-through rate, your impressions, your clicks, your conversions, if you set that up. So that's really what the ecosystem is. And SEM Rush said something, and I looked it up while I was sitting here talking, that what they said is they made a point about the difference between programmatic advertising and display ads, such as the Google Display Ad Network, is that where, programmatic ad buying involves multiple platforms to run a campaign, all kinds of different platforms, whereas a display ad relies on a single ad network for that process. And that's true even within Google, where if you're running display ads, it runs on their display ad network. But if you're running a search ad, you have this box, okay, you run it on their search network, but they also have their ad partners. Okay, I usually turn that off, but you have to make that decision. But that is programmatic advertising. When you say, okay, I want to use your ad partners, this goes back to what we're talking, where Google goes out to all their ad partners saying, what kind of inventory do you have? I want to buy X amount of inventory on this platform or that platform or this app. And then they turn around, and that's what you're doing when you say, I want to use your Google ad partners. That's exactly what you're doing. At that point, that's where you're entering into the programmatic advertising on Google. It's just that Google is doing everything for you behind the scenes, and you don't have to directly deal with any of it. Mm-hmm. Did I confuse everybody?
No, I think you're kind of hitting on it. It's for me, everyone thinks of Google as the search network, but yeah, they do have display, they do have their ad network, but it's a much more constrained set. The overall programmatic ecosystem is much, much, much broader than just what Google can do. So I think some people may dabble in it in Google, but if you're serious about it, you're going to be, outside and using one of the bigger, really it's there's some, and we don't want to scare everybody by saying, oh, this is really complicated with ad exchanges and demand side platforms and supply side platforms and data management platforms and machine learning. No, I mean, there are places you can go to make it easy and get all that in one, but there are a lot of moving parts because it is a lot broader system.
Most small businesses I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I think most small businesses aren't going to be directly dealing with
Mm-mm.
programmatic advertising. And that's why I brought up Google, because you're right. Google is a constrained version of programmatic, the entire programmatic advertising ecosystem, but they do use it. And it might be an easier way for people to wrap their brains
Wrap their
around
heads around.
the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Because it does get a lot broader. And I think maybe the next question we're going to go to in a minute, I think maybe I put those out of order. I think maybe the targeting options and targeting strategies may, once you see the breadth of those, then understanding all the moving parts to manage that. And again, without scaring everybody into the complexity, there are platforms that make it easy. You go onto the platform, you set up your ads, you tell it what you want to target, and it goes out and it figures out how to run those ads on the different supply providers. But yeah, it's should we go to the targeting, Ken? Go to that one next. Do you want to jump
Sure.
in there? Maybe come back and look at the ecosystem a little more after that. Like I said, in retrospect, I should have flipped the order of these questions. So let's do that. Ken, what are some different targeting strategies that are available in programmatic advertising, and how do they work?
Yeah. So, I mean, you can use targeting based on behavior of online browsers and what their interests are. You can have contextual delivery of ads based on relevant content or websites even. There's the demographic information, that is going to provide information based around age, gender, income, a whole variety of things. There are lots of different options that you can choose from there. Geographic targeting beyond just, a radius or zip codes or things like that. You can actually use targeting based on a specific physical location or address, which is really pretty cool. Has a lot of really interesting implications. There's a retargeting element that could be involved. You could build lookalikes from the targeting criteria that you're using. Interest based. So, like Paul mentioned, I think earlier, if you're a home remodeler, you might want to try to target ad space that's made available on, publishers' platforms. Like he used the example, This Old House. I don't know if they actually allow ad space or not off the top of my head.
They
But
actually do.
they do. Okay.
Yep.
So, you can use websites that you think people are going to go to as trusted sources and run your ads there. You can target by device, mobile or desktop. You deliver in-app ads only, where the ad is only going to run when somebody fires up a set of apps, a number of a set of apps that you choose to use. You can use time-based criteria. And then, obviously all of these platforms buy data from third-party sources. So that's available as a component as well. I would like to kind of jump in and talk a little bit about the nuance between display ad targeting and maybe programmatic, because, we've got some technology that we use, for example, on display ad targeting, that we can go back and if we've captured the phone advertising ID, which is turned on by default, by the way, if you have your GPS settings turned on, advertisers know where your phone has been. They don't know who that phone necessarily belongs to, because that information is not shared, but they know that phone was in a particular place. We can actually upload a list of locations and run ads, to those folks. So a great example would be, a car dealership, or even a restaurant. If you're a Mexican restaurant and there are 10 other Mexican restaurants within easy driving distance, where people would likely say, okay, well, that's not too far to drive. Yeah, let's check that out. You can actually use the customers of your competitors to build an audience to deliver in-app mobile display ads. So I don't know if that's, honestly, I don't know the answer to this. Maybe you guys do. Is that programmatic, or is that just an element of a particular display model?
I would say it's more of the programmatic.
That's
One of the
what I always
distinctions I use is the sophistication, right? the
Yeah.
sophistication level of the types of things you can do. I mean, yeah, Google ads, Facebook ads have retargeting. They have lookalikes, but when you get into the really sophisticated
Yeah.
layers, almost all the layers of things,
Yeah.
used to say, if you want to target your ads to people between 25 and 35 that have dogs and drive Volvos and like yogurt, you can, right?
Yeah. Right.
Because of all those extra layers, the targeting you just don't get with the more basic
Right.
platforms.
And people aren't going to reveal that information when they're doing a Google search to trigger a Google search ad.
Right. And in fact, I think the Google and Facebook they're targeting, while they may have some of those things, it tends to be more broad based, general interests, not
Yeah.
specific past behaviors.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, like you said earlier, Jeff, I think this is a really cost effective strategy to get good traffic, not just throw something against a wall and drive everybody who possibly could be on the internet to your website. You don't want to do that. This is using these targeting elements to get likely relevant traffic to your website who, then you get them into the know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer model, where you're moving them through the buyer's journey. And, you're getting into the know and like probably a little bit more, maybe a little bit trust, to get them onto your website. And then it's the job of your website and all of the other marketing that you're doing to convince them, yeah, that you're the solution to their problem.
Yeah, there's a couple of the interesting aspects of targeting that I'd like to dig a little deeper in. I don't know if you want to start it out, Ken, more maybe the geo targeting, geo fencing particularly, I think is interesting. And then
Yeah.
those multiple layers of behavioral. Do you want to dig into those a little more?
Yeah, I mean, so you can do geo targeting on Facebook. In some cases you have to create like a reverse area where it's kind of interesting, where you deselect your targeting to actually be able to capture who actually went inside the space that you want to target. A lot of times people are sold geofencing ads, and really they're just big radiuses that anybody who goes into a major sports complex is going to get that ad, and a lot of big media companies like to run those ads because their whole business model is broadcast advertising. And so they found a way to say, okay, well, it's not broadcast advertising because I'm targeting it only to the 40,000 people who went to, this particular stadium to run your ads in front of. I think geofencing has so much more potential. Jeff, as you mentioned, you can use it to trigger an ad when somebody is nearby. Like the restaurant example that you mentioned, we can actually upload up to 10,000 addresses and say, and we could drop a pin and say, here's the physical address, and and geofence anything around a 200 foot to however big radius you want to do around that physical location. And then anybody who goes inside that, we build as a target audience to run ads for. And I think that's where it's super cool, and it's seriously underutilized. And there are people who do this, whether right or wrong. I'll let our listeners be the judge of that. But you can run ads. If you're a personal injury attorney, you target emergency rooms or urgent care centers, because those are places where people tend to go when they've had injuries. It's not perfect because sometimes people have the flu or another illness that sends them there, so it's not going to be perfect, but it's a pretty good start. I love the example of an auto dealership using it when somebody goes on a vehicle lot, they're looking for a car. You can run an ad to them to say, hey, maybe you want to check out what we have over here at this dealership. My favorite example is for restaurants. I mean, I just think it's so cool that a restaurant could actually target every customer that goes into another competitor's restaurant. You already know I used the example earlier, about Mexican food. You already know they like Mexican food. So why don't you run an ad to let them know you exist and give them a reason to come try your restaurant out? And if it's logistically, it makes sense because it's close proximity wise. I think that's a pretty solid approach, and it's really a pretty cheap strategy to get that visibility to a better defined audience than just sending a mailer out to everybody in the neighborhood, or hitting a boost button on Facebook and saying hit everybody that you can with my budget, which is usually too small, within a 10-mile radius of my location. This is more targeted and I think therefore more effective than that.
Yeah, I think the geo-fencing capabilities within programmatic are, again, much more sophisticated than, if I run on Facebook or run on Google, I'm putting in a zip code, or maybe I'm dropping a pin on a map, but it's a fairly wide radius, really. I mean, I think Facebook, you can go down to the zip code level. Google, you can drop the pin and go down to maybe 1 mile around it. That's still a pretty big area. But to be able, as you said, to say, here are my top 10 competitors, I want to target people who have been to them in the last month.
Yeah.
That gets pretty powerful. I think geofencing has got some other cool uses too. For instance, if you're wanting to identify everyone who's been to a trade show, right? You geofence around the trade show for the time of the trade show, and then afterwards you've got, again, like you said, it's not perfect because other people pass through, but now you've got a pretty high probability that the people that are seeing your ads have been to that trade show.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. You can get more granular on Facebook with your targeting, but you have to do it. You have to actually put several geographies overlapping each other to where you create an exclusion area, and then you run your ad to the exclusion area.
You're basically creating circles. You create a circle where you want to go, and then you take chunks out of it with other overlapping circles. Yeah, it's really clunky.
It is
clunky. Versus,
Yeah.
Depending on the platform, literally drawing a fence outline around a building and saying, I want to figure out people who've been there.
Yeah. So it's awkward for sure.
Paul, anything you want to jump in on targeting?
No, not really, other than they deliberately make it kludgy to use because they're all about making money.
Who's the they? The Google, Facebook, you mean? Or in
Google.
General?
It's, that's Google's on their big push again for AI, and they use broad match keywords and use our AI, and we can show more effective ads. It's like, yeah, you can make more money from Google. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I've got probably a different podcast. I've got a great counterexample of that. The combination, right? If you're not aware of the combinations and how they work together, you can get yourself in big trouble and spend money fast. Right. And the flip side with programmatic, again, because it is all about all those combinations, I said I wanted to take it back to the ecosystem. And you've got your platform providers for inventory, you've got your data providers for all the behavioral data. And by the way, side note, all those quizzes that are online about, where's your ideal retirement spot, answer all these questions and we'll tell you. It's not about telling you your ideal retirement spot. It's about building a profile for you for programmatic advertising.
Exactly right.
So that's where that comes from. It comes from those things
Best
online
case scenario.
that you answer. It comes from public information, places you've lived. It's where you've worked. It's about building that profile so you can, as I said, it's not such a stretch to think that if you wanted to advertise to, again, people in a certain town between 25 and 35 that have dogs, drive Volvos, and like yogurt, you can.
Yeah.
That's why if a quiz asks you where your ideal retirement spot is, tell them Antarctica.
Yeah.
Well, then it's going to draw a profile of you based on that.
Yeah.
They will.
Yeah, I think, again, going back to the ecosystem, though, because it can get complicated with all these additional outlets for where your ads can go, even types of ads we're going to get into in a minute, because of the different layers of geofencing, because of the behavioral. Ken, you mentioned contextual. So again, contextual is, if I'm a remodeler And to go back to Paul's example, then if somebody's looking through this old house, maybe that's a good place because of the context of what they're looking at to put in my ad for a remodeling firm. And it's not just remodelers, obviously, or exact matches, but just saying based on the context, could be an article on remodeling in, a flying magazine or something, right?
Yeah.
But right next to that article, if there happens to be an ad slot available, then your ad could, your ad here.
Yeah. I mean, anything lifestyle, really,
Yeah.
better life, brighter smile, all those kinds of things, retirement locations, travel desires, my gosh, I mean, that's, really going to be fueled well by programmatic advertising strategy.
So now, again, I keep saying I want to take it back to the ecosystem. Let me do it, and then we can move to the next question. It's, I don't want to scare our audience, right? I want you to think there's all these avenues that are open. Oh my gosh, I can target my competitors' restaurants and shows. Oh my gosh, can target people that have been to trade shows. I can be very, very granular in my behavioral targeting. I can be very specific where my ads get shown contextually. That doesn't mean that you should be scared to do it because it's complicated, right? All of these ecosystem platforms, these different moving parts, you may not want to do it yourself. If you do, there are platforms that kind of tie it all together and allow you to. You may want to, bring in somebody that has expertise doing that. But just because it's sophisticated, just because it's complicated, doesn't mean, it's not for you. It means you maybe need to do a little bit of homework or involve somebody else to help you do it.
Yeah, you're probably going to have to use more than one platform because, so going back to Google, they do use programmatic advertising, but you can't geofence with Google. So You're going to have to use a different platform to do that.
Yeah. All right. Should we move on?
Sure.
So that's targeting strategies. We're going to go back to Ian for a question on what are the different ad formats that are available in programmatic advertising and when are they most effective?
So there's 10 main ad formats available in programmatic advertising, and they're all most effective at different times for different purposes. And there's also different channels that you would find these on. So let me share with you the top 10 different ad formats available for programmatic advertising. I'll also give a bit of a description for each one, when it's most effective, and which channels that you would do these on that are most popular. Number one is display ads, and these are banner or image-based ads shown on websites. These create brand awareness, they're good for retargeting, and they offer a broad reach. The best platforms for these, or the most popular ones, are Google Display Network, The Trade Desk, and MediaMath, and of course there's others out there as well, but those are the most popular ones. Number two, video ads. These are short video clips that play before, during, or after video content. They're really great at storytelling, creating emotional engagement, and for brand campaigns. And some of the most popular channels are, of course, YouTube, Hulu, Brightroll. You even see these on Prime Video now. Great for getting exposure. Number three, native ads. And these are ads that match the look and the feel of the media format where they appear. So it creates seamless integration with content. It's very non-disruptive for the user experience. And some of the biggest platforms for this are Taboola, Outbrain, and ShareThrough. Number four, mobile ads. And these are ads that are specifically designed for connecting with mobile devices and people that are using mobile devices, including smartphones and tablets. Of course, the best thing they're good at is to reach a mobile audience because you can target them specifically. You can also do geo-targeting, which is very cool, where you can say, hey, if somebody's been to this trade show or are currently at this trade show or at this store, I want to present ads to them even after they've been there, which is very cool. So you can really do some highly specific geo-targeting. Some of the biggest platforms for this are AdMob, Unity Ads, MoPub. The one I really like is called Ground Truth, just because it's a little bit more cost-effective and accessible. And number 5, social media ads. Should be no surprise what these are, but these are ads that appear on social media platforms, and they can include text, images, videos. They're great at engaging with people on social networks, right? That's where the people are spending time. You might as well hit them with some ads there. And it's great for leveraging social interaction. So some of the most popular ones are, of course, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, LinkedIn ads, Twitter ads, TikTok ads. And then number 6, rich media ads. And these are interactive ads with features like video, audio, or other elements that encourage viewer interaction. These are good at engaging users with immersive experiences, and they have a high interaction rate. And some of the platforms that you'd find these on are DoubleClick, Seismic, and Flash Talking. Number 7, sponsored content. This is content that resembles the publication's editorial content, but it's actually paid for by an advertiser. So it's like advertorials that used to be in a lot of magazines, but it's very streamlined. It really is great at building brand trust, engaging in a less disruptive way. Some of the platforms you'd find this on are BuzzFeed, Vice Media, and The Atlantic. Number 8, search ads. These are very common. These are ads that appear in search engine results or on search-related websites, and you can do programmatic advertising with these. They have high intent for audience targeting, so you can say, hey, if somebody has a higher chance of actually clicking on the ad or of converting, I want to target those people. It's direct response campaigns. Some of the most common platforms, of course, are Google Ads, Bing Ads, Amazon advertising. Number 9, audio ads. Advertising that's integrated into audio streaming services or podcasts. It's great at reaching audiences during audio engagement. It's non-visual. Obviously, it's auditory. And some of the biggest platforms are Spotify, of course, Pandora, iHeartRadio, if you're listening to radio stations online. And number 10, finally, is connected TV ads. And these are ads that are served on internet-connected TVs, often during streaming video content, targeting TV viewers with digital precision, high engagement content. Roku is one of the big platforms, Hulu, and Sling TV. But what the biggest thing you should take away from this is that there's lots of different platforms, there's lots of different types and formats of ads. The key here is knowing who it is you're trying to target, finding where they're spending their time and on what type of media they consume, and then finding the best platform that you can affordably present your ads on and do some programmatic advertising.
Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good round out of all the different types of ad formats and outlets that are available. Paul, Ken, do you guys have any favorites?
Favorites? Well, I don't like to see ads personally. Yeah, I mean, again, my favorite is just the opportunity of what you can do with geofencing and mobile ads. I mean, I just think that that's so cool and so under-tapped that that's what gets me excited about all of these. But they all have their place for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Display ads are great too. I mean, again, the traditional banner ads, they've been around for a long time. Because they've been around for a long time, it tells me that, they frequently do work, but you have to put a little bit of thought and effort behind them for sure.
Yeah. Paul, how about you? Any favorites?
Yeah, I don't really have any favorites. I guess what I'd say is that I don't click on ads. And what I would tell small businesses is if you're someone that doesn't click on ads, don't let that stop you, because people do, obviously, because they work and we see it work all the time. So I think that's and it's not just, it's anything. You get outside yourself, because if you're saying, well, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't click on an ad. Well, I wouldn't either, but a lot of people do. So don't let that stop you from trying different platforms and seeing what works for your business.
Yeah, there's also, and I agree, if I see, especially on Google, if I see an ad and then right underneath it, I see the organic, I'll go to the organic, because I know if I click on it, it's costing that company money. But you're right. Don't say I'm never going to advertise because I would never click on an ad. A lot of people would, and it may be a valid way for reaching them. But even if they don't, you've taken up an ad slot from somebody else, one of your competitors that could potentially be showing. So while I click on the organic search result, the ad slot, it's not having a competitor in my face either. So
Yeah. It is important to realize, that we live in an era where most people now are starting to recognize that an ad is an ad, and they choose to, if they, like you said, Jeff, if there's an alternative, easily on map result or Google search or whatnot, then they might go there. But if they feel like it's an ad, they may shy away from it intentionally or even very strongly.
mhm.
So you need to realize it when you're running ads, but again, you're going to lose 100% of the opportunities that you never get yourself in front of, right? So
Right.
part of this whole strategy is you've got to get yourself in front of the most logical places that your likely ideal customers are going to be. And so this is really part of that equation.
Yeah, I think Ian hit on that toward the end of his clip where he talked about, of course, take it back to your ideal client. You make sure it's consistent with your strategy. And I would go further and say, make sure the messaging of your ad is consistent with your overall brand and your overall messaging and what you want people to do. But yeah, you gotta figure out your ideal client audience and how to connect with them. This is just another set of ways to do it. For me personally, for my own question of any favorites, I have been intrigued and I've run a little bit of online video advertising. It's a little different animal in as much as the production value has to be very high. It's kind of interesting when we put videos up for web use, we want to make them compressed, right? But for online advertising, they've got to be, high resolution 4K. They're very high production value. So there's maybe a little bit of cost of building the ad, but my gosh, the amount of volume you can run inexpensively, I think it works out to like 3 cents per impression. So, on $1,000 budget, you're buying, what's that, 30,000, 33,000 impressions. And again, it is brand awareness. So it's top of funnel oriented. But to get that kind of reach for that kind of budget, it goes pretty far. It's very attention getting for sure.
What's interesting too is I've noticed a lot of people are starting to put QR codes in because,
Mhm.
especially if you're doing a streaming, you can actually pause that, and go click, go scan the QR code and go visit the website,
Yeah.
and also, Walmart, just bought Vizio TVs, and everybody's like, why in the world would they do that? It's because they want to have a delivery platform for ads, like Amazon gives you the ability to click, and go right to Amazon's website when you're using like Freebie, their free solution, based on the ad that you're running. So
Mhm.
that's going to be coming even more.
Yep.
One thing I'd say about, we talk about the top of the funnel advertising and it's inexpensive, but it doesn't necessarily convert. I'd just keep in mind that no one can do business with you if they don't know you exist.
Right. And there's, that number of touches that's gone from 7 to 15 to 50 in some cases. It can be a bunch of those touches, right?
Yeah.
So,
Cost effective touches.
yeah. Should we move on to the next question?
Sure.
All right, Paul, this one's for you. What are some key performance indicators and metrics used to measure the success of programmatic advertising campaigns?
The same as any other digital advertising campaign. So, it is. That's what we're talking about. So, impressions, which is the number of times your ad is shown, clicks, the number of times that someone clicks on your ad, which is how you calculate click-through rate. Clicks divided by impressions gives you your click-through rate. And then the conversion rate, how many, and this is where I kind of touched on this earlier, you have to define what is a conversion for you or for that campaign. And so then you you figure your conversion rate, and then you get into some more, this has more to do with budgeting, I guess, or how you, in Google's world, how you maximize or how you target your budgeting, so you can maximize for clicks within Google, or you can maximize for conversions, and their AI supposedly figures this out. And I say supposedly, but you have your cost per acquisition, and that's how much does it cost you to acquire a customer. And again, this goes back to conversion. What is a conversion? Define a conversion. And then your return on ad spend. I'm spending X amount, and so for every $10 I spent, I got $100 in business. Okay, that your return on your ad spend. And then viewability. This one, percentage of ads that we're actually seeing, because any ad platform. So go back to Google, because that's what people are familiar with. If they show your ad on page 2, that's an impression in Google's world. How many people are going to see that? It's like, where's the best place to hide a dead body? Page 2 of Google. So that's, just because there's an impression doesn't mean people see it, even if it's down at the bottom. And Google is going away from pagination anyway. It's just one endless scrolling experience. So if it's too far down, no one's going to see it. And then, your audience insights. Ian talked about brand campaigns, brand awareness, things like that. And that's important. We talk about a lot of times, a lot of businesses, they don't want to spend money on brand awareness, but that's how people are introduced to your business. If people don't know you exist, they're not going to contact you. So brand awareness is really important, and you have to put some time and effort into that. And then your data insights, your audience insights, your analytics, which these ad platforms give you, but has to be set up correctly. Goes back to setting up your conversions, tracking those properly, because that's where your audience, that's where all this analytics comes from. So yeah, there's really no difference between, from the standpoint of KPIs of programmatic and any other advertising platform. You have to define your conversions, and you have to track them properly, and you have to set your budget properly and your targeting. And so, yeah, it's pretty much the same as any other KPI, unless I missed something.
I think, go ahead, Ken.
Well, I was just wondering about share of, the overall share of the ad space available. What's your share? I mean, maybe you talked about it and I missed it, but, if there are 100 slots available per day, just for simple math, and you're able to run your ad based on your budget and your targeting criteria, 20% of the time you're getting 20% of the overall share of that ad space. I would think that that's got to be something that you would want to measure and track, partly because you want to make sure you're getting visible enough. You don't want to get too visible, because then there's banner blindness that can kick in, where if people see your ad too much, they immediately start to tune it out because it's no longer new and fresh. But you also want to try to do the best you can to block out your competition, Jeff, as you said. So,
yeah, Google calls that, well, they change it on a daily basis, but
we're talking about more than just Google.
Well, yeah, but that's what people are familiar with. But yeah, it's percentage of ad share, basically. So if you're advertising for this product or service, and 20% of the time your ad shows, or 30% of the time your ad shows, which means 70% of the time your other competitors are showing. But if there's 100 different competitors, 30% may not be too bad. So it's all contextual, but then it's also, where does your ad show? If it's a search ad, going back to Google, is it top of page, absolute top of page? Where, if it's a display ad on a website, for instance, where are you showing? In a sidebar? Are you showing down near the footer? Where is your ad showing on that platform?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think relative to KPIs, what I would add is that certain things are going to be easier or harder than others. And you mentioned QR codes on videos, and I have to chuckle because if they're watching on the phone, that's a little hard. But no, absolutely, if they're watching on the TV, they probably got their phone with them. They can pop it up and hit that QR code, and boom, you've got them. So, but make sure that the URL the QR code drives to has targeting tracking parameters on it, UTM parameters, so that you know it came from the TV ad.
Right.
If you put a URL on the TV ad and you expect them to remember it, and probably don't put a real long URL, make it a short URL, and it may redirect to the actual page you want to go to and add tracking parameters when it redirects. So you got to figure out ways to attribute and get a little more creative, but I think it is a little harder with some of these platforms. Now, the platforms will give you some information about how often it showed and when and the demographics of the audiences that watched it. But you gotta look at those. And I think on videos, maybe not so much the captive videos, but places like YouTube, are people skipping over it? How far in are they watching? And then it goes back to the,
as soon as the skip ad button shows up, that's how I watch it.
Well, I actually heard somebody advocate the other day that YouTube ads should be 6 seconds or less, because that's the time until they can hit the skip button. So if you get your message across the 6 seconds, you got.
And if it's 6 seconds or less, you don't get the skip ad button because it's only 6 seconds.
Yeah. And then, going back to, always be testing, A/B testing, version A, version B, which one performs better. That's still valid in the programmatic world, to have multiple versions in continuing to look at your KPIs and look at what's doing better, boot out the one that's not performing as well, and substitute in something that hopefully will do better, and keep that experimentation going and see what people respond to. We've got just a few minutes left. Do we want to do a quick rapid fire, which would basically be the form of everyone jump in if there's some major challenges or pitfalls that you think advertisers, businesses that want to advertise using programmatic should be aware of when it comes to this opportunity?
Well, one thing I would add, going back to what you just talked about the A/B testing and testing different formats and different headlines and different descriptions, different whatever, that's called ad management, and that costs money. Okay. And I think that's something a lot of times that advertise, if a small business is paying someone to run ads for them, and there's this ad man, if you really want to do this A/B testing and you want to run ads for the different stages of the buyer journey, which you should, but that costs money, and a lot of small businesses can't really afford that. But ad management is not free, and the more ad management you want, the more that's going to cost.
Mm-hmm. I don't think it's as a matter of small businesses can afford it or not. I think it's the fact that they don't think that they need it, which I think is a big mistake. I mean, honestly, if you're going to be running ads and you're not managing the ads, you might as well just pour money out your window, because you're going to get a lot of wasted click. Yeah. Are you going to get lucky and you're going to get some business? Sure. But yeah. And the other thing is, you've got to set realistic budgets. Again, just because these may be cost-effective alternatives to other ad strategies, Google search ads or Facebook ads or whatever, you've got to look at it from a budgetary perspective. And, honestly, you might have to make a choice. Do I run ads? Do I invest in SEO? Do I invest in search ads? You may have to pick and choose between what's going to get you the most bang for the buck. Overall, to the extent that you can be omni-channel, to the extent that you can have, all of these running, that's fantastic. But again, you start to get into levels of complexity, because now you've got programmatic running, you've got Google search running, you're trying to do Facebook posting, you're trying to write content for SEO purposes and user engagement and interest. And, and so I think people just need to be pragmatic about this. But if you're going to do it, give yourself a fighting chance to have success by giving yourself enough budget, which includes budgeting for ad management.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the things you need to pay attention to, I think there's a few more of them with programmatic. You need to pay attention to where your ads are going. You need to monitor that. There may be some websites you don't want your ads being shown on, right? So you need to pay attention to the inventory quality and what's showing where, and then maybe make some adjustments. You need to, make sure your creatives are matching up with things. You need to have multiple creatives in, especially on the video side. Creatives are going to be a little more expensive. Um, and you need to worry about ad blockers, right? Pay attention to your audience and are you getting through? So there's a lot that goes on. Platforms will help. If not, find an expert.
Well, and then there are human ad blockers, and there's also,
Like Paul.
subscription based, ad blockers that are kind of naturally there. I mean, you pay for a premium version of a digital streaming platform. You do that so that you don't have to see the ads.
Mhm.
So you have to factor all that in.
To that point, a lot of them will still show a small amount of ads at the beginning. So it doesn't mean that the streaming platforms won't work because people are all paying for premium. A lot of people don't pay for premium, and even if they do, they may see ads at the beginning.
Yeah, which is becoming more and more popular.
Yep,
even for premium.
This is a good place to wrap.
Premium.
This is a good place to wrap up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think so. We're coming up. We're on an hour here.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Appreciate you sharing your insights. I want to thank the audience for joining us today, and we hope you found this topic valuable. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you need any help. If you did find the topic valuable, please share the link with it to other businesses who could benefit. And also be sure to follow us or subscribe to our podcast on any of the major podcast platforms. And there they are, Apple, Spotify, and all the majors. Until next week, keep calm and market on.